What is thymosin alpha-1? Thymosin alpha-1 is a very complex string of 28 amino acids that can help remodulate the immune function. It was initially discovered by Dr. Albert Goldstein out of George Washington University, and what he uncovered in his work while looking at bovine thymus glands is he found that thymosin alpha-1 is a very interesting and unique peptide structure that regulated the immune response. So in this video, what we're going to do is deconstruct what thymosin alpha-1 is. We'll talk about some of the approvals that it's got in certain countries, what happened in the United States, how it is a complete reset for the immune response, and what it means for your future health. So I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future. Really appreciate the opportunity that I have to increase my own health and understanding through some of these peptide structures. I've been using them for over a decade. We've helped over 70,000 clients in my practice. Our team of medical prescribers uses only 503A, 503B compounding pharmacies to make some of these unique structures, because we know that not all structures are created equal. And so if you'd like to go deeper, go to agelessfuture.com, send in your blood labs or get blood labs through our facility, and then my team can help you find the next steps in your overall health and fitness journey. So thymosin alpha-1, what is it? Well, first of all, if you think of your immune system, you want to understand that thymosin alpha-1 is not going to override it. Like you think of a steroid, steroids can completely save somebody's life if their immune system is overhauling their body and they have inflammatory reactions. I have a patient of mine who recently was diagnosed with a very rare autoimmune condition, and it was steroids that got him through it. But now, as we're looking at future health, think thymosin alpha-1 as an overall system reset, where your immune system can start to understand where things are going off the rails. So thymosin alpha-1, as Dr. Goldstein was looking at its function, he found that the thymus gland has several peptides. Many of you have probably heard of thymosin beta-4. This is a longer amino acid chain, and the full structure of it actually helps modulate some of the stem cell activation in the body. It's angiogenic, so you get better vascularity. Thymulin is another peptide, and typically it's stacked with zinc. But what thymulin does is it helps orchestrate the white blood cells so that each of these white blood cells, like your neutrophils, knows how to target the bacterial infections in your body or chronic viral infections. Your lymphocytes understand when there's an acute exposure of a virus and can decouple its replication capabilities or bacterial functions. If there is a bacterial infection, your monocytes can now understand how to handle any kind of yeast or mycotoxins or parasites in the gut. Eosinophils, those help your body recognize something that's a true threat or a true allergy versus something that's innocuous. And then your basophils are kind of like the lowest part of the white blood cell complex, but sometimes is expressed with recovering from an infection, with monocytes being elevated. But the beautiful thing about thymosin alpha-1 is it helps with all of these activities in the body. And so this 28 amino acid structure, it was discovered in 1977, so almost 50 years ago. And what we're seeing is this preponderance of evidence that help support its ability to regulate the immune response. In one study, for example, they took over 100 participants, all who were hospitalized with sepsis. Their bodies were fighting for life. And the placebo group versus the thymosin alpha-1 group, what they found is the group that used thymosin alpha-1 with standard care, they were able to get released from the hospital sooner, 12 days versus 14 days in the placebo group. They had better systemic organ improvements than the placebo group did. They also found that they had shorter need for being on ventilators and other interventions. So thymosin alpha-1 is, you don't want to think of it as like, oh, I've got an infection, let me throw thymosin alpha-1 at it. You want to think of it as, I'm using other therapies. Maybe you've got a maybe an immune exacerbation, maybe you've got some kind of exposure like long COVID that you're having a struggle getting over, thymosin alpha-1 may be something to help reset the entire cascade of events that happens with your immune system. So it's not like dropping a bomb. Many times you'll see research where LL37, which is cathelicidin, this is universal peptide made primarily by humans, only by humans, and all the mammals that have been studied. It's an antimicrobial peptide, so it can go in and assess the danger and break through biofilms and help activate the immune response so that your body can get rid of things like Lyme, some of those spirochetes, or other infections. And when used with thymosin alpha-1, there seems to be some benefits there. Now, thymosin alpha-1, it did have FDA approval in the orphan drug status, but that approval has expired a few years ago. But what it was initially approved for was working with patients who had autoimmune disease like MS, lupus. They also found that patients who had like hepatitis C and hepatitis B. Thymosin alpha-1 helped postpone any kind of aggravation or symptomatic response from those viral infections while other treatments did their work on the interferons. Thymosin alpha-1 has been used for a cancer, a chemotherapeutic adjunctive therapy. It's also been used as a vaccine adjunct. So you can couple thymosin alpha-1 when vaccines are administered. And what the research shows is that that helps attenuate the immune system so that there's a better response overall from the vaccine and less of a hit or a burden to the immune system. Thymosin alpha-1 is a peptide that is very interesting for immunosenescence. So for those of us who have these longevity goals, what you'll see is immunosenescence is where our immune system, these cells, they go through several life cycles, but they expire after about 40 to 50 turnovers, for lack of a better term, but it was the Hayflick limit is what it's called. And when these cells become senescent, they start secreting these pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they change the environment. And the one area that we want to protect is the immune system. I can't tell you how devastating it is when you're seeing your grandparent or a mentor who's in their 70s or 80s or 90s, and they're so vibrant, and then they get pneumonia, and that was the last conversation you had with them. Well, thymosin alpha-1 is being studied and used in about 35 to 37 countries right now as a response to that threat, where yes, the interventions are still necessary as far as treating the pneumonia, but even adding in thymosin alpha-1 might be a really good and a smart pathway to take so that you have this immune intelligence. So think of it as like from what it is, it's a peptide that's made by your thymus gland, and this peptide can be activated when there's any kind of immune response or immune threat. The thymus gland, it does shrink as we age, and so the thymus gland, I think of it as an intelligent training center for these thymulin peptides. There's the ABP7, which is this actin binding peptide, different than the actin binding protein, in case you look those up. They're two completely separate mechanisms of action, but these peptides, they help shape and form what's called the Th1 and Th2 and Th17 response. So they help downregulate the chronic inflammation. They help with both the adaptive and the innate immune responses so that your biology can adapt to whatever comes at it. Now, we have all kinds of different viruses, different infections that our bodies really have to get accustomed to, and thymosin alpha-1 in the future may be one of the most important breakthroughs in medicine that we have. Now, there's more research, more studies that needs to go into this, but one of the studies, this was done in 2007. It just gives you a historical overview of TA1. And what they looked at is they looked at all the different trials with various patients who had cancer, viral infections, and immune disorders, and they had control group versus placebo. And in this complete analysis of all the studies, they found that their conclusion was thymosin alpha-1, initially isolated from the thymus gland, characterized by Alan Goldstein in the 1970s, acts as an immune modulator. So modulator is something that It helps the immune system calm down if it's overreactive, or brings the function up if it's a little bit sleepy. So it helps modulate that balance. They found that it normalized T cell and cytokine response via pathways such as MHC class 1 and toll-like receptor activity. He also found that rather than think of this as an immune booster, it's actually an immune resilience and an immune intelligence activator. So I think thymosin alpha-1, if you look at some of the therapies that are out there, and especially with some of these new viruses that we're starting to see get introduced into our environment, no different than what we had happen with COVID in 2020. Well, I think thymosin alpha-1 may be one of those gold star peptides that deserves a little more attention, a little more research, so that we can start utilizing it to help people who want to live long, live robustly. We don't want to have that setback from an immune assault, and also how to distinguish between what it's used for, where it shines, and how frequently to cycle this. So if you guys are interested in going deeper on thymosin alpha-1, the immune system, how it relates to the gut and the brain, you're going to want to watch my next video on how thymosin alpha-1 actually works for signaling. I'm Regan Archibald. I'll see you there.